You think you're falling apart. You think something's gone wrong, that the dreams are too strange, the silence too heavy, the emotions too unpredictable. But what if nothing is wrong at all? What if the chaos isn't the end, but the beginning? Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." He meant that awakening, real awakening, doesn't come with angel choirs and perfect peace. It comes when your life begins to split at the seams. Because before you can become who you were meant to be, you have to face who you've pretended to be. You see, most people live inside an illusion, a mask so familiar they mistake it for their face. They smile because they were told that's what good people do. They work, they obey, they play their roles in the grand theater of normality. And yet, somewhere deep down, a quiet voice whispers, "This isn't me." That whisper is the beginning of everything. But most people silence it. They drown it out with noise, work, addictions, or spiritual bypassing, because that whisper threatens the entire structure of their false identity. You didn't come here to play safe. You came here to remember, and that's where the first hidden sign begins. A sign that almost always feels like destruction. But it's not destruction. It's revelation. Sin 1. The collapse of the false self. Something strange starts happening. The things that used to matter, approval, appearance, achievement, begin to lose their power over you. And it's not because you've become apathetic. It's because your soul is bored of pretending. It's as if the character you've been playing suddenly starts glitching. The dialogue doesn't fit anymore. You try to say the old lines, but your voice cracks. You try to smile for the same reasons, but it feels hollow. You're beginning to wake up inside the dream. Carl Jung called this the death of the persona. The persona, that mask we built to survive society, starts to crumble when your authentic self wants to emerge. And it doesn't go quietly. You'll feel torn between worlds. One voice says, "Keep it together. Be normal." Another whispers, "Break free. You can't breathe in that mask anymore." This tug-of-war can look like depression, anxiety, or loss of direction. But it's not illness, it's initiation. You begin noticing your own contradictions. You preach kindness, but suppress your anger. You talk about confidence, but feel hollow inside. You act spiritual, but secretly crave validation. Don't be ashamed. This is where the archetypes start moving. Because every false piece of you that collapses creates space for something real to emerge. Sometimes, this collapse comes dramatically. A breakup, a betrayal, a burnout. Life seems to tear away everything that gave you stability. Other times, it's quieter. You wake up one morning and feel nothing for the world you built. Your job feels meaningless. Your friends sound distant. Your routines feel robotic. It's like your soul unplugged from the simulation, and now you can't pretend to enjoy the game. Pattern interrupt, slight humor. You ever look around and think, wait a second, am I in a spiritual Truman show? Don't worry, that's a good sign. It means your consciousness is expanding beyond the small script you were handed. This collapse is terrifying because it feels like losing control. But control was never real. It was a deal your false self made with fear. The moment that contract breaks, you begin to see that chaos is not punishment. It's recalibration. There's a Jungian concept that fits perfectly here. Enunciadromia, it means the reversal of opposites. When something is pushed too far in one direction, it inevitably flips. If you've lived your life always trying to be good, to please, to be light, your shadow will rise. If you've suppressed your emotions, they'll return with force. If you've been too rational, your intuition will suddenly hijack your logic. That reversal is not failure. It's balance trying to restore itself. Tone deepens. Cinematic suspense. But here's the catch. The false self doesn't die quietly. It bargains. It says, don't change. You'll lose everything. You'll look crazy. No one will understand, and sometimes it's right. Because transformation costs you the life that kept you asleep. You'll lose people who only loved your mask. You'll outgrow environments that fed your ego but starved your soul. You'll face silence where there used to be applause. And yet in that silence, something extraordinary begins. One night, you'll feel the weight of your emptiness and realize you're not dying. You're shedding. Like a snake leaving its old skin behind. You'll feel raw, exposed, but alive. Because for the first time, you're not acting, you're feeling. You'll cry for no reason, laugh at inappropriate times, and maybe talk to your ceiling asking, "What the hell is happening to me?" And Jung would smile, because he knew. That's the soul remembering itself. The collapse is not random, it's intelligent. Your psyche is dismantling the version of you that cannot cross the next threshold. Everything that falls apart now is an act of mercy. Mini cliffhanger. Suspenseful pause. But here's what they don't tell you. When the false self collapses, something else wakes up. Something ancient. Something powerful. It's not gentle. It's not pretty. But it's real. And it's waiting for you in the next sign. Sign to the rise of the shadow you've. Watch the mask crack. Pieces of the old self still cling to you like dust after a storm. You breathe differently, now more slowly, as if air itself is unfamiliar. And in that silence, something moves. It isn't gentle. It doesn't ask permission. It arrives the moment your false light dies. That moment is the shadow Jung said that when you begin to know yourself, the first thing you meet is everything you've denied. The shadow is not a monster hiding under the bed. It's the part of you under the bed, behind the mirror. Inside the dream waiting for your honesty. You've called it anger. You've called it jealousy. You've called it sin. But what if it is simply exiled power? At first, it feels like sabotage. You meditate and rage floods and you pran your mind hisses insult. You try to forgive and old resentments wake like wolves. Congratulations. You've opened the gate. When the shadow rises, you'll think you're regressing. Old habits resurface. Tempers flare. Desires you thought were beneath you pull at your spine. You might even dream of violence, lust, or decay. You'll panic. You'll think, this can't be spiritual. I'm supposed to be pure. That's the lie of the persona again, trying to survive. The truth, you're being purified but by fire, not by light. Beat of convoy lowers. Imagine your psyche as a vast cathedral. 4 years, you kept the lights only in the front hall, showing visitors what looked holy. Now the back doors are opening, revealing rooms filled with smoke and memory. You can't ascend by skipping the basement. The shadow speaks the language of dreams. It shows up as the friend you secretly envy, the partner who triggers your worst impulses, the stranger who says what you're afraid to admit. Every irritation is an invitation. Pattern interrupt. Slight dark humor if enlightenment feels like floating on clouds. Why do so many awakened people end up crying in parking lots? Because that's where the real curriculum begins. Jung warned, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. He meant that wholeness is not perfection, it's integration. To integrate is to walk into the forest you swore you'd never enter, carrying only curiosity as a torch. Inside that forest, you'll find pieces of yourself hanging from branches. The rage you swallowed at 16, the desire you disowned at 20, the voice you silenced to keep the peace. Pick 'em up. They're not curses. They're contracts waiting to be rewritten. The shadow tests you through mirror. Someone criticizes you and you burn inside. Good. There's gold under that fire. Someone lives freely while you stay cautious. Watch carefully that envy points to your imprisoned courage. Shadow work isn't about blaming others. It's about decoding reactions. Every judgment hides a disowned truth. Every trigger reveals territory still ruled by fear. Tongue sharpens thriller pacing. But beware, once the shadow knows, you can see it. It fights to be heard. Nightmares intensify. Coincidences sharpen. Your body starts expressing what your mouth avoided. A cough becomes unspoken grief. Fatigue hides unacknowledged anger. The psyche will not stay buried once it senses light. There comes a night, always around the second act of awakening, when the air feels heavy. Time slows, and you swear something ancient is in the room. That's not superstition. That's your unconscious, finally visible. You might feel watched, but it's you who's doing the watching. Two selves in the same room, meeting for the first time. It's terrifying because the shadow remembers everything you've forgotten. You'll hear it whisper. Remember when you wanted more than survival? Remember the promises you broke to yourself? Remember the dreams you killed just to fit in? Most run from that voice. But you listen, and when you do, the fear begins to change shape. It turns into energia, raw, pulsing electricity that was yours all along. Mini cliffhanger pause. There. Esse danger. If you reject the shadow again, it mutates. It becomes projection. You'll start seeing your darkness in everyone else. The gossiping coworker, the manipulative partner, the narcissist online. They're real, yes, but they're also mirrors. The world becomes a theater of your unhealed parts. So what do? You stay. You breathe. You study your reactions as if they were sacred text. When you feel rage, say, I see you. When you feel envy, ask, what gift are you pointing to? When you feel shame, whisper, you belong. This is the alchemy. Jung spoke of a turning base emotion into gold through awareness. Brief humorous reset now. Does that mean next time you're angry you should hug your shadow and post a selfie with a caption integrating? Probably not. But noticing before reacting, that's real power. Here's the paradox that makes this stage so hauntingly beautiful. The shadow contains not only your wounds, but your genius. Every repressed quality, strength, creativity waits in that darkness. The poet you could have been, the leader, the lover, the magician, all trapped behind the bars of should and mustn't. To reclaim them, you must walk through guilt's doorway. Voice softens. Reflective integration isn't an event. It's a conversation that never ends. Some dos you. El make peace with a piece of yourself. Other days you'll trip over an old wound and start again. Tatese. Fine. The shadow has infinite patience. It waited decades for you. And when it feels, you truly see it. Not to destroy it, but to understand it. Transforms the monster, kneels. The darkness becomes guide. And you realize the shadow was never against you, it was for you. Hidden in disguise. But the moment you begin to merge with it, another challenge rises. If darkness and light can coexist within you, what happens when your external world no longer reflects either extreme? Relationships shift. Your sense of mission returns, but now it's anchored, not manic. You begin to notice meaning again in synchronicities and symbols. Which brings us to the next threshold. Dramatic pacing. Curiosity builds when the shadow bows. The soul begins to whisper louder, and reality itself starts answering back. Numbers repeat. Dreams cross into waking life. Coincidences stack like dominoes. You are no longer being tested. You're being guided. That guidance is the third hidden sign. But guidance can look like madness if you don't know the code. Suspense, pause. In the next part, we'll decode it. Because once you start seeing patterns that shouldn't exist, you're not hallucinating. You're synchronizing. Sign 3. The pull towards solitudo. Survive the collapse. You face the shadow. And now, something else begins to happen. Something quieter. Stranger. Almost unexplainable. The noise of the world begins to fade. And you no longer chase it. You stop returning texts as fast. Crowds drain you. Small talk feels like sand in your mouth, and you can't tell if you're breaking down or finally breathing. This is the third hidden sign, the pull toward solitude. It starts as fatigue, spiritual jet lag from living between worlds. But it isn't exhaustion, it's recalibration. You've been plugged into everyone else's current for so long that when you finally unplug, silence feels deafening. At first, you resist it. You tell yourself, I'm just tired. You scroll a little longer. You fill the quiet with noise. But silence has teeth. It keeps finding you on deep down. You know, something sacred is calling you inward. Carl Jung wrote that loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And that's exactly what happens now. The language of ordinary life no longer fits your experience. How do you explain to someone that your dreams are starting to predict your emotions? How do you tell them that you can feel energy in rooms, or that music suddenly makes you cry for no reason? You don't, because words shrink it. And so, you go quiet, not because you're lost, but because the soul has taken over the microphone. People will misunderstand this phase. They'll call you distant, withdrawn, even cold. But solitude isn't isolation, it's integration. When the psyche expands, it needs space to rearrange itself. Every thought, every memory, every identity begins to find its new position in the architecture of your being. You're not antisocial, you're under construction. Pattern interrupts subtle humor. It's funny, isn't it? You used to chase connection like oxygen, and now you need a day to recover after one dinner with humans. Welcome to the spiritual introvert. It's a revenge arc. But make no mistake, this solitude isn't optional. Every mystic, every hero in myth, every alchemist in history walked into silence at this exact point. Because silence is where the psyche downloads the next chapter. You start to notice that even the quiet has textures. There's the heavy silence, thick, full of echoes from your past. There's the tender silence, warm, like being held by something unseen. And then there's the sacred silence, that strange, humming stillness that feels alive. The sacred silence is where you start meeting your true self, not as an idea, but as a presence. Jung called this encounter the numinous. It's the sense of touching something greater than the ego, a divine electricity that both terrifies and soothes. In solitude, this numinous energy begins to reveal itself. It speaks through symbols, intuition, synchronicities, not words. You'll be reading, and a line glows like it was written for you. You'll think of someone, and they call within minutes. You'll dream of a path, and the next day, you find yourself walking it. You begin to realize that solitude isn't empty, it's encrypted. And the more you listen, the more you decode. But there's danger here. Silence amplifies everything. Your mind starts replaying old stories. Your fears grow louder. The ego, desperate not to die, whispers, you're disappearing. You're wasting your life. Go back to normal. If you believe that voice, you'll rush back to distraction, and the process will pause. If you stay, however, something incredible happens. You start to hear another voice beneath the fierce softer, ancient, magnetic, the voice of the self. This voice doesn't command, it invites. It doesn't shout, it hums. It says, be still, I'm making you. And as you surrender to it, life begins to reassemble. You'll notice that some things, music, books, places vibrate differently now. Certain conversations feel unbearable, not because you judge them, but because they drain your frequency. Your psyche is tuning itself like an instrument, aligning with what nourishes your next evolution. Mini cliffhanger. Suspenseful tone. But solitude has another secret function, one Jung hinted at, but rarely explained. When you retreat from the world, the archetypes step forward. Dreams intensify. You might meet figures who feel both familiar and mythic. A wise old man, a mysterious woman, a serpent, a light. They aren't hallucinations. They are fragments of your deeper psyche, revealing themselves in symbolic form. The wise old man archetype appears to offer insight. The anima, or animus, may show up, pulling you toward balance between masculine and feminine energy. Every vision, every whisper, every vivid dream is communication from the deep unconscious. Your inner cosmos, finally speaking clearly. You begin to live differently. You stop rushing. You notice patterns in leaves, in shadows, in strangers' words. You start realizing that the same intelligence shaping galaxies is quietly sculpting you, and for the first time in your life, you trust it. Pattern interrupt. Gentle humor. You'll also realize that your social skills have atrophied. You'll go out. Someone will ask, "So what have you been up to?" And you'll want to say, "Integrating the archetypal dimensions of my unconscious." But instead, you just smile and say, "Reading, that they say." Fine. You're speaking two languages now, the human and the symbolic. You're bilingual in consciousness. In solitude, time itself starts to behave differently. Hours vanish, days blur. You'll lose interest in clock time, because your life is starting to sync with psychic time. Psychic time doesn't measure hours, it measures insight. One afternoon alone can do what 10 years of ordinary living cannot. Because solitude collapses distraction. It puts you face to face with the eternal. The danger is not in solitude itself, but in getting lost inside it. Some seekers mistake isolation for enlightenment. They build walls, instead of silence, that they withdraw not. Out of wisdom, but out of fear. True solitude doesn't reject the world. It prepares you to re-enter it with clarity. The hermit stage is a cocoon, not a coffin. And when the transformation ripens, the soul begins to push you gently outward again. You'll feel an unfamiliar restlessness, not the old anxiety, but a quiet knowing that it's time to serve. Because the point of solitude isn't to escape humanity, it's to understand it from within. Only when you've met your own silence can you hear the world's pain without being consumed by it. Cinematic tone, soft build. There's a mythic rhythm to this. The call gives, the descent, the isolation, the return, that every hero. From Buddha under the tree, to Christ in the desert, to Jung in his tower, had to disappear before they could reappear. You're walking the same path, the timeless archetype of withdrawal. Revelation. So if you find yourself alone lately, don't panic. You're not being punished. You're being purified. You're not losing people. You're losing noise. And in that stillness, something extraordinary is forming the blueprint of your higher self. Mini cliffhanger. Suspense. Because once you've made peace with solitude, something uncanny begins to happen. The world outside starts reflecting your inner alignment. Reality bends to meet your psyche. You start noticing signs, coincidences too precise to dismiss. The inner and outer worlds begin merge. That's the next hidden sign, synchronicity. And it's not just a psychological phenomena. It's the universe whispering, you're on the right path. But not every synchronicity is friendly. Some are tests, and if you misread them, they can lead you back into illusion. In the next part, we'll unravel the mystery of that dance, when coincidence becomes communication, and destiny begins to speak your name. Synchronicities intensify. Learn to walk alone. The noise of the world no longer pulls you, and the silence no longer frightens you. But just when you begin to grow comfortable in that quiet, reality starts. Responding, do you think of a word, and it appears on a billboard? You dream of a person, and they message you the next day. You ask a question in your heart, and the answer shows up in the next song that plays. At first, you laugh it off. Coincidence, right? Then it happens again, and again, until it becomes impossible to ignore. Welcome to Sign 4, Synchronicity. Intensify. Carl Jung coined the word synchronicity to describe meaningful coincidences. He meant those moments when inner experience and outer event meet with uncanny precision, as if the universe itself were mirroring your thoughts. But synchronicity isn't a magic trick. It's communication, the deep unconscious speaking through the fabric of reality. When the false self collapses and the shadow integrates, your psyche stops fighting the world and starts resonating with it. That resonance distorts time, probability, and logic. It makes life behave like a dream that knows you're awake. At first, it feels playful. Numbers repeat. 1111, 222, 333. Feathers on the ground. Songs of the perfect lyric. Strangers saying phrases you wrote in your journal the night before. You smile. You think, maybe I'm just noticing more. And you're right. Awareness itself sharpens perception. But then the coincidences become intimate. You think of your childhood fear, and a film on that theme appears in your feed. You reread an old Jung passage about destiny, and your phone pings with a quote on destiny from someone who's never heard of Jung. It's as if the universe has slipped a note under your door. Slight humor reset, and you start bargaining with it like it is Amazon Prime. Okay, universe, if you're real, send me a butterfly in the next 5 minutes. Then a commercial for butterfly insurance plays on YouTube and you whisper, okay, now you're just showing off. The deeper truth is that synchronicity isn't proof of something out there watching you. It's evidence that you and reality were never separate to begin with. Jung said the psyche and matter are two sides of the same coin, mind on one face, world on the other. When you awaken, the coin spins fast enough for both faces to blur into one shimmering whole. Voice deepens, but here's the thriller part no one warns you about. When everything starts aligning, your ego secretly returns wearing a halo. It whispers, you're special. You're chosen. You control this. That's the trap. The moment you believe you own synchronicity, it vanishes like a cat offended by attention. Synchronicity doesn't obey you. It dances with you. It's a feedback loop between consciousness and creation. To understand it, watch how it feels. If a sign brings peace, it's guidance. If it spikes anxiety, it's projection. The universe speaks fluently in emotion. Your body is the interpreter. A symbol that fills you with quiet certainty is a compass. A symbol that feeds obsession is a mirror, showing where you're still grasping. You might begin noticing patterns linked to your archetypal journey. The hero sees paths and doors. The magician sees mirrors and circles. The lover sees hearts, music, art. The sage sees books, eyes, light. These are not random aesthetics. They're psychic fingerprints, markers of which archetype is active within you. As synchronicities multiply, your logic panics. You'll think, I'm losing my mind. But no. You're losing your monopoly on meaning. Life is becoming participatory. You stop asking, what are the odds? And start asking, what is this trying to show me? Tone softens. Reflective one night, you'll walk outside and everything will feel arranged. The wind changes when your thoughts do. The street light flickers with your heartbeat. A song lyric from a car window finishes your inner sentence. You realize the cosmos is alive, not metaphorically, but experientially alive. This realization is both ecstatic and unnerving, because if reality mirrors consciousness, then nothing is meaningless anymore. Every word you speak, every emotion you feed, every choice you make sends ripples into the field. Responsibility replaces superstition. Mini cliffhanger, but not all synchronicities are benevolent. Some test your discernment. You'll receive mixed signals, conflicting omens, false alignments that feed vanity or fear. Jung called these inflations. When divine energy floods an ungrounded ego, the key is humility. When signs confuse you, don't chase them. Wait. Let them echo. True synchronicity repeats gently. Illusion demands attention. Slight humor reset. Think of it like cosmic texting. If the universe double texts you politely, it's real. If it spams you at 3 a.m. with all caps, it's probably your anxiety pretending to be God. As your relationship with synchronicity matures, you stop asking for proof and start practicing partnership. You speak less and listen more. You move when intuition nudges, and you rest when silence returns. This rhythm is ancient shamans, prophets, poets, all lived inside it. They weren't predicting the future. They were participating in its unfolding. Soon, you'll notice synchronicity clustering around purpose. Opportunities appear, teachers arrive, resources align, but each alignment demands authenticity. If you act from fear or ego, the flow stops like a river meeting stone. If you act from integrity, everything accelerates again. The current responds to truth. Voice lowers to near whisper. There will be a moment. It always comes when a single sign lands so precisely that it knocks the breath from your body. You'll know it's not imagination. It will feel like being seen from the inside out. That's not coincidence. It's confirmation. It's the self, using the language of the universe to say, keep going. But with confirmation comes calling. Synchronicity isn't just there to amuse you. It's there to recruit you. To move from seeker to servant. From observer to participant. Once you can read the signs, the next question is inevitable. What am I supposed to do with this power? And that, Jung hinted, is the final threshold. The emergence of inner authority. The world has mirrored you long enough. Now it's time for you to become the mirror. Music swells, suspense build, because when the universe trusts you with meaning, it stops sending hints and starts sending responsibility. You begin to act, not from reaction, but revelation. You speak, and reality listens. You choose, and timelines shift. The self no longer whispers, it leads. And that leadership is the fifth and final hidden sign. Sign 5, the emergence of inner authority. You've followed the path this far. The mask has fallen. The shadow has risen and bowed. Silence has reshaped you. Reality itself has spoken through signs. Now, something deeper begins to move. Not outside, but through you. It starts quietly. A decision you used to debate for days now feels simple, inevitable. A truth you once sought in books begins echoing inside your own chest. And when you speak it aloud, it lands with the weight of law. This is the final sign, the emergence of inner authority. At first, you mistake it for confidence. You think, I'm finally healed. I'm finally strong. But that's only the surface. What you're feeling isn't the ego swelling. It's the self taking the wheel. Jung said the goal of individuation is not to become perfect, but whole. Wholeness carries its own gravity, a silent sovereignty that doesn't need permission to exist. You begin to notice it everywhere. In the way you stand, the way you listen before you speak, the way you no longer chase validation because truth itself is your witness. Slight humor break, of course. Your friends might not call it sovereignty. They'll call it a phase. Or worse, a rebrand. Let them. They can't see that you're not reinventing yourself, you're remembering yourself. Inner authority doesn't roar, it hums. It's the quiet, knowing that floods your body when something aligns. It's the yes that needs no applause, and the no that needs no explanation. When you follow it, doors open. When you ignore it, everything jams. The universe stops cushioning your indecision. It demands precision. This is where power becomes responsibility. For years, you looked for teachers, gurus, systems. Now, their words still help, but they no longer define you. The compass has migrated from outside to within. You start recognizing how many of your beliefs were borrowed furniture in someone else's house. One by one, you return them. All that remains is what genuinely vibrates with your soul. That emptiness, that's freedom without instructions. Tone deepens thriller tension, but freedom is frightening. There's no script left to follow, no applause to chase. You stand in the middle of your life with nothing but intuition as a map. That's the test of this sign. Inner authority isn't comfort, it's confrontation. Every moment becomes a referendum between fear and authenticity. Do you stay in the job that kills your spirit, or step into the unknown? Do you repeat the same relationship pattern, or risk loneliness for truth? Do you speak what burns inside, or swallow it to stay safe? Each choice carves the architecture of your becoming. When the self leads, compromise tastes like poison. You physically can't tolerate what isn't aligned anymore. Your nervous system starts policing your boundaries better than your mind ever could. At first, you'll think you're becoming sensitive. Then you'll realize you're becoming exact. You can no longer lie to yourself without immediate feedback. Anxiety, fatigue, sudden loss of synchronicity. The psyche punishes betrayal of truth as swiftly as the body punishes a bad meal moment of calamy. But when you honor that truth, reality flows, again effortless, graceful, sometimes eerie. You say yes, and the path lights up one step ahead. You say no, and the noise fades instantly. This is co-creation, not control. You're no longer a chess piece on the board, you're playing with the board itself. Yet there's humility in it. Because the more aligned you become, the clearer you see that you are not the author, you are the instrument. Inner authority speaks the language of paradox. It makes you softer and stronger at the same time. You stop needing to win debates, because presence itself convinces. You stop fearing mistakes because even detours feel choreographed. This is not arrogance. It's atonement. The conductor finally trusts the orchestra within you. Mini cliffhanger suspense. But beware after such power arrives. The old world will test you one last time. The phone will ring from your past. Temptations of comfort, validation, control will return disguised as opportunities. They'll whisper, "Come back. It's easier here." They are checkpoints, not curses. If you stay true, they dissolve. If you regress, the old lessons replay faster, sharper, mercilessly efficient. Because by this stage, the psyche wastes no time. You've proven you can see. Now it demands you live what you see. Gentle humor reset. You might notice something funny around now. When you give advice, people listen. Not because you're preaching, but because your energy says what your mouth doesn't. And you'll think, wait, when did I become the adult in the room? That's the giveaway you've crossed the threshold. Inner authority carries a new magnetism. Opportunities start finding you instead of the other way around. You speak less, but impact more. You draw to you what resonates with your frequency and repel what doesn't. Automatically, effortlessly. It's not magic, it's coherence. When your inner world and outer actions are identical, reality stops arguing. Soft cinematic swell, Jung called this alignment the emergence of the self, the organizing principle of wholeness. It isn't a new identity. It's the reconciliation of all identities. Light and shadow, chaos and order, human and divine. Finally shaking hands inside you. And once that happens, life stops being a problem to solve. It becomes a mystery to participate in. You move through the world like a lucid dreamer awake. Within the collective sleep, you see people not as enemies or lessons, but as reflections of the same vast consciousness trying to remember itself. That awareness changes everything now. A warning and a blessing. Once inner authority awakens, you can never fully return to ignorance. You can distract yourself, numb yourself, pretend, but the voice will remain. It will whisper in every silence. You know who you are. You can delay destiny, but you can't delete it. Closing movement warm, rising tone, so here you stand 5 signs later know. longer a seeker chasing light, but a soul embodying it. The false self collapsed, the shadow integrated, solitude sanctified. The universe spoke, and now the self leads. This is what it means to become who you were meant to be. Not flawless, not untouchable, simply whole. You'll still bleed, still laugh, still doubt. But beneath every wave of emotion, you'll feel that deep, unshakable pulse. That's not ego. That's eternity echoing through human form. Final pause invitation tone. If you've recognized yourself in these signs, if you feel that inner authority stirring, then you're ready for what comes next. Because once the self awakens, the world reacts. Power attracts opposition as surely as light casts shadow. Carl Jung warned of this in one of his most haunting insights, the dangers that come when spiritual power meets the unprepared mind. And that's exactly what we explore in the next video. Carl Jung's warning to the spiritually powerful. Stay until the end screen and step through. If you've made it this far, the message waiting there is meant for you.